The security guard at the Rothschild Gallery barely glanced at Nadia Palmer as she walked through the doors carrying her cleaning supplies, which was exactly how she preferred it these days. 5 years ago, she would have sauntered in wearing leather and attitude, looking for something expensive to slip into her jacket. Now, at 26, she wore practical sneakers and kept her head down, grateful for honest work even if it meant scrubbing floors at 2 in the morning. She started in the lobby, methodically working her way through the marble entrance with practiced efficiency. The gallery was silent except for the gentle hum of climate control systems protecting millions of dollars worth of art. Nadia had been cleaning here for 8 months, and she never looked at the paintings longer than necessary. They represented a world she had no business being part of, a world she had once tried to steal from rather than appreciate. The sound of footsteps made her freeze. The gallery was supposed to be empty except for security. She looked up to see a man in an expensive suit walking through the contemporary wing, hands in his pockets, studying a massive abstract canvas as if it held the secrets of the universe. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair and the kind of strong jaw that belonged in cologne advertisements. "We are closed," Nadia called out, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. "You should not be here." The man turned, and even from a distance she could see his eyes were striking. "I own the building," he said simply, walking toward her. "I can be here whenever I want." Nadia felt heat creep up her neck, of course. Zander Bryant, the billionaire real estate developer who had purchased the gallery 3 years ago as part of his art investment portfolio. She had seen his picture in the business section of newspapers left in the break room, but the photos did not do him justice. In person, he had a presence that filled the space around him. "Sorry, Mr. Bryant," she said, returning her attention to the floor. "I will stay out of your way." "You are not in my way," he said, stopping a few feet from her. "I am having trouble sleeping. Sometimes I come here to think." She nodded, unsure what to say. Billionaires with insomnia were not her problem. She moved her mop bucket to the next section of floor, hoping he would take the hint and return to contemplating his artwork. Instead, he lingered. "How long have you worked here?" 8 months, Nadia replied, keeping her focus on the tiles. "Do you like it?" The question surprised her. In 8 months, no one had asked her that. "It is honest work," she said carefully. "I appreciate having it." Something in her phrasing must have caught his attention because he tilted his head slightly. "That is an interesting way to put it. Most people would just say yes or no." Nadia straightened, meeting his gaze directly. She had learned in prison that showing weakness only made things harder. "Most people do not know what it is like to need a job so badly that liking it becomes irrelevant. I am grateful to have honest work, Mr. Bryant. That is the truth." For a long moment, he studied her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. Then he nodded slowly. "I respect that." "What is your name?" "Nadia Palmer." "Well, Nadia Palmer, I am going to be here for another hour or so. Do not let me interrupt your routine." He walked back toward the paintings, and Nadia released a breath she had not realized she was holding. She continued cleaning, hyper-aware of his presence even when he moved to different rooms. Several times she caught him watching her instead of the art, but every time she looked directly at him, he would turn his attention back to the canvases. At 4 in the morning, she finished her shift and packed up her supplies. Zander was sitting on one of the benches in the main gallery, his jacket off and tie loosened. He looked tired but somehow more human than when he had first appeared. "Have a good rest of your evening, Mr. Bryant," she said as she headed for the door. "Wait," he called out, standing up quickly. "Do you work tomorrow night?" "Every night except Sunday," she replied. "I will probably be back. I am working on a deal that is keeping me up at night." He paused, then added, "It was nice to have company, even quiet company." Nadia felt something flutter in her chest but pushed it down. Men like Zander Bryant did not see women like her as anything more than part of the furniture. "The gallery is yours," she said neutrally. "You do not need my permission to be here." She left before he could respond, walking 6 blocks to the bus stop in the pre-dawn darkness. As the bus rumbled through empty streets toward her tiny studio apartment, she told herself to forget the way his eyes had lingered on her, the way his voice had softened when he said her name. That path led nowhere good, but the next night he was there again, and the night after that. By the end of the week, a pattern had emerged. Zander would arrive around midnight, always in a suit, always claiming insomnia or work stress. He would wander the gallery while she cleaned, and gradually he started talking. Not about business or money, but about art, about the city, about the strange loneliness of being awake when the rest of the world slept. Nadia kept her responses brief at first, but it became harder as the nights went on. He had a way of asking questions that made her want to answer, a genuine curiosity that seemed at odds with his intimidating wealth and success. "Why do you clean at night?" he asked one evening, watching her work on the windows overlooking the street. "The pay is better and I do not have to interact with many people," she said. "I prefer it that way." "You do not like people?" "I do not trust easily," she corrected. "There is a difference." What would it take for someone to earn your trust? The question was so direct it startled her. She set down her cloth and turned to face him fully. "Why do you care, Mr. Bryant? We are not friends. I clean your building. You own half the city. We exist in completely different worlds." "Maybe I am tired of my world," he said quietly. "Maybe I come here because you are the first person in years who talks to me like I am just another human being. Everyone else wants something from me. You just want me to leave you alone so you can work." Nadia felt her carefully constructed walls crack slightly. "That is fair," she admitted. "But you should know that being around me is not a good idea. I am not who you think I am." "Who do I think you are?" "Someone worth knowing." Zander moved closer, his expression serious. "What if you are wrong about what I think?" Her heart was racing now, but she forced herself to stay calm. "I have a record, Mr. Bryant. I spent 3 years in Riverdale Women's Correctional Facility for theft and assault. I got out 2 years ago, and I have been trying to build a normal life ever since. That is who I am. Still think I am worth knowing." She waited for him to recoil, to make an excuse and leave. Instead, he was quiet for a long moment, processing her words. When he spoke, his voice was measured. "What changed between who you were and who you are now?" "Prison changes you," Nadia said, surprised he was still standing there. "I had a lot of time to think about the choices I made, the people I hurt. My cellmate was a woman named Rosa who had kids on the outside. She showed me pictures every day, talked about them constantly. Watching her miss out on their lives because of her mistakes made me realize I did not want that future. I wanted to be someone who could be proud of herself. And now I work 3 jobs, live in a place the size of a closet, and count every dollar. But I sleep at night knowing I earned those dollars honestly. That matters to me more than anything." Zander nodded slowly, and something shifted in his expression. "My father went to prison when I was 12, he said quietly. "Corporate fraud. He served 5 years. When he got out, no one would give him a chance to rebuild. He died broke and bitter when I was in college. I built my entire empire partly to prove that our family name could mean something good again." Nadia felt the air leave her lungs. "I am sorry," she whispered. "Don't be. I am telling you because I understand what it takes to start over, to carry a weight that never fully lifts. My father could not do it, but you are doing it. That takes strength most people do not have." They stood in the quiet gallery, the space between them charged with understanding. Nadia felt exposed in a way she had not felt in years, but also seen, truly seen. "Would you have dinner with me?" Zander asked suddenly. "Not here, not while you are working. Just dinner, as 2 people who both know what it is like to feel like they are carrying the world on their shoulders." "That is a bad idea," Nadia said, even as every part of her wanted to say yes. "Why? Because you are you and I am me, and this can only end badly, or it could end well," Zander countered. "We will not know unless we try." Nadia looked at him, at the hope in his eyes, and felt her resolve crumbling. "One dinner," she heard herself say. "But if this goes wrong, I am blaming you." The smile that broke across his face was worth the risk. They met 3 days later at a small Italian restaurant far from the gallery and the upscale neighborhoods where Zander usually spent his time. He showed up in jeans and a simple button-down shirt, looking more relaxed than she had ever seen him. Nadia wore the nicest dress she owned, a simple navy blue number she had found at a thrift store. "You look beautiful," he said when he saw her, and the sincerity in his voice made her blush. Dinner was easier than she expected. Without the pressure of their usual dynamic, they fell into a natural rhythm. Zander told her about growing up in Seattle, about working construction jobs in college to pay tuition after his father's legal fees drained the family savings. Nadia shared carefully edited stories from her childhood in foster care, about aging out of the system at 18 with nowhere to go and no one to help her. "Is that how you ended up stealing?" Zander asked gently. "Partly," Nadia admitted. "I fell in with the wrong people who made it seem exciting and easy. For a while it was both, until it was not. The assault charge came from a robbery gone wrong. The homeowner came back early and I panicked. I am lucky I did not hurt him worse than I did." "Do you ever think about reaching out to him, to apologize?" "Every day," Nadia said quietly. "But my parole officer advised against it. She said some victims do not want contact and I should respect that, so I carry it with me instead. I figure that is part of my penance." Zander reached across the table and took her hand. The gesture was simple but electrifying. "You are doing the work to be better. That counts for something?" "Does it?" Nadia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Some days I feel like no matter what I do, I will always be that person who hurts someone, like I do not deserve good things." "You deserve every good thing," Zander said firmly. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do after." They talked until the restaurant started closing, then walked through the city streets together. Zander told her about his company, about the pressure of managing thousands of employees and billions in assets. Nadia listened, fascinated by the glimpse into his world. "It sounds lonely," she observed. "It is," he admitted. "I have business associates and employees, but I do not have many real friends. People either want something from me or they are intimidated by the money. You are the first person in a long time who treats me like I am just Zander." "That is because to me, you are just Zander," Nadia said. "I do not need anything from you and your money does not intimidate me. I have been at the bottom. I know money does not fix everything." He stopped walking and turned to face her. The streetlight cast shadows across his face, but his eyes were bright. "Can I see you again?" "Yes," Nadia said without hesitation. The word felt like jumping off a cliff, but she was ready to fly. Over the next month, they fell into a routine that felt natural despite the strangeness of their situation. Zander would still show up at the gallery during her night shifts, but now they talked openly, sharing pieces of themselves. On her nights off, they went to quiet restaurants, walked through parks, watched old movies at independent theaters where no one recognized him. Nadia found herself opening up in ways she had not thought possible. She told him about her dreams of going to college someday, of maybe studying social work to help kids aging out of foster care. Zander listened with genuine interest, asking questions and offering encouragement. He shared his own vulnerabilities too. The pressure from his board of directors, the constant scrutiny from media, the way every decision he made affected thousands of lives. Some nights he looked exhausted, the weight of his responsibilities evident in the lines around his eyes. "Why do you do it?" Nadia asked one night as they sat on a bench overlooking the river. "If it is this hard, why keep building more?" "Because I am good at it," Zander said simply. "And because somewhere in my mind, I am still that 12-year-old kid watching his father being led away in handcuffs. I am trying to build something so solid that it can never be taken away." "But who are you building it for?" Nadia pressed gently. "You have more money than you could spend in 10 lifetimes. At some point it has to be about more than just security." He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the dark water. "I do not know," he finally said. I have been so focused on the goal that I forgot to think about what comes after reaching it. Nadia leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture that had become comfortable between them. Maybe it is time to figure that out. Maybe you are right. They sat in peaceful silence, and Nadia felt something slot into place in her chest. She was falling in love with him. The realization should have terrified her, but instead it felt inevitable. Zander was kind and driven and surprisingly vulnerable when he let his guard down. He saw her past not as a deal-breaker but as part of her story. With him, she felt like she could be fully herself, scars and all. But the fear came later, in the darkness of her apartment when she was alone. What would happen when he got tired of slumming it with the ex-con, when his business associates found out he was dating someone with a record? When the media got hold of the story and dragged both their names through the mud? She was so lost in these thoughts that she almost missed her shift at her second job, a weekend cleaning position at an office building downtown. It was only as she was leaving that building at noon that she ran into someone who made her blood run cold. Well, if it is not Nadia Palmer. She turned to see Marcus Reed leaning against a car across the street. Marcus had been part of her old crew, the group she had run with before her arrest. He looked older, harder, and the grin on his face was predatory. "Marcus," she said flatly, her body tensing, "I have nothing to say to you." "That is cold, Nadia. We were friends once. We were never friends. You used me, and I was too stupid to see it." Marcus pushed off the car and walked toward her. Nadia held her ground even though every instinct screamed at her to run. "I heard interesting things about you lately," he said conversationally. "Word is you have been spending time with Zander Bryant, the billionaire. That is quite the upgrade from cleaning floors. Stay away from me, Marcus, or what? You will have your rich boyfriend deal with me." He laughed, and the sound was ugly. "See, I think this is perfect. You know all about his routines, his properties. We could make a fortune." "I am not that person anymore," Nadia said coldly, "and if you come near me or Zander again, I will call the police." "You do that, and I will make sure everyone knows about your past. Wonder how Mr. Bryant will feel when the whole city knows he is dating an ex-con who used to rob places just like his gallery." The threat hung in the air like poison. Marcus gave her a mocking salute and walked away, leaving Nadia shaking with anger and fear. She stood on the sidewalk for a long time, trying to calm her racing heart. That evening, she called Zander and told him they needed to talk. They met at his penthouse, a stunning space that took up the entire top floor of one of his buildings. Nadia had never been there before, and the sheer luxury of it might have intimidated her if she was not so focused on what she needed to say. "What is wrong?" Zander asked immediately, reading the tension in her body. "I ran into someone from my past today," Nadia said, pacing across his living room floor. "Marcus Reed. He was part of the crew I used to run with. He knows about us, and he is trying to pressure me into helping him rob you." She waited for anger, for accusations, for him to tell her to leave. Instead, Zander just said, "What did you tell him?" "I told him to stay away from both of us. But Zander, he threatened to go to the media about my record. To make sure everyone knows what I did. That will hurt you. Your business, your reputation. Maybe we should stop seeing each other before this gets worse." "No," the single word was so firm it stopped her pacing. No, Zander repeated, walking toward her. "I do not care if the whole world knows about your past. I am not ashamed of you, Nadia. I am in awe of you. You rebuilt yourself from nothing. That is more impressive than anything I have ever done." "But your company, your investors, can deal with it," he interrupted. "I have been doing some thinking since our conversation by the river. You were right. I have been building an empire without knowing why. But these past few weeks with you, I have figured it out. I want to build a life, not just a business. I want to wake up with someone who makes me want to be better. I want to come home to someone who sees me, not my bank account." Nadia felt tears prick her eyes. "Zander, I am falling in love with you," he said simply. "I should probably have led with that, but I am not good at this. I am good at business deals and construction projects, not at telling someone they have become the best part of my day." "I am falling in love with you too," Nadia whispered. That is why I am scared. I do not want to ruin your life. You could never ruin my life. You are making it better. He pulled her into his arms, and she let herself sink into his warmth. We will deal with Marcus together. I have excellent lawyers and even better security. If he tries anything, we will handle it. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. I found someone I love. I am not letting her go because some criminal thinks he can intimidate us. Nadia pulled back to look at him. You really mean that? Every word. She kissed him then, pouring all her fear and hope and love into the gesture. Zander responded with equal intensity, his hands gentle but firm on her waist. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Stay here tonight, Zander said softly. Let me show you that this is real, that we are real. Okay, Nadia agreed. Okay. They spent the night talking and holding each other, the city lights twinkling below them like fallen stars. Nadia felt safe for the first time in years, wrapped in Zander's arms with his steady heartbeat under her ear. The next morning, they went to the police together to file a report about Marcus's threats. The detective who took their statement was professional but skeptical until Zander explained the situation calmly and thoroughly. By the end of the meeting, they had a restraining order in process and a patrol scheduled to drive by Nadia's apartment regularly. We take these situations seriously, the detective assured them. If Mr. Reed contacts you again, call us immediately. Over the next week, Marcus tried twice to approach Nadia. Both times she called the police and both times he was warned off. The second time they arrested him for violating the restraining order. It turned out Marcus had outstanding warrants for parole violations. He would not be bothering them for a while. It is over, Zander told her when they got the news. You are safe. Thanks to you, Nadia said, squeezing his hand. No, thanks to you having the courage to tell me the truth and let me help. We are a team now. The word settled into her bones. A team. She liked the sound of that. 2 months later, Nadia quit her night cleaning job at the gallery. Not because Zander asked her to, but because he helped her enroll in community college to start working toward her degree in social work. She kept her other 2 jobs to pay for expenses, refusing to let him cover everything despite his offers. I need to do this myself, she explained. Not because I do not trust you, but because I need to know I can stand on my own 2 feet. I understand, Zander said, but I am allowed to be proud of you, right? You are allowed, she agreed with a smile. She moved into his penthouse 6 months after that first dinner, and it felt like coming home. They established routines, breakfast together before Zander left for his office, evenings where Nadia studied while he worked on his laptop, weekends exploring the city and finding new favorite spots. The media eventually did find out about their relationship, and there were some ugly headlines. Billionaire's ex-con girlfriend was one of the gentler ones. Nadia braced herself for Zander to pull away, but instead, he gave an interview to a major business magazine. Nadia Palmer is the strongest person I know, he said on record. She made mistakes, paid her debt to society, and rebuilt her life from nothing. That takes more courage and integrity than most people possess. I am honored she chose to share her life with me. Anyone who has a problem with her past can take it up with me directly. The interview went viral. Suddenly, they were the unlikely love story people could not stop talking about. Some of the coverage was cruel, but most of it was surprisingly supportive. Nadia received letters from other formerly incarcerated people thanking her for showing that redemption was possible. You are inspiring people, Zander told her one evening as they read through some of the messages together. I am just living my life, Nadia protested. Exactly. And that is inspiring. A year after they met, Zander proposed. He did it simply at the gallery where they first encountered each other on a quiet night when the building was empty. He got down on one knee in front of the abstract painting he had been studying that first night. I came here looking for insomnia relief, he said, his voice echoing in the space. Instead, I found my reason to wake up every morning. Nadia Palmer, you made me believe in second chances and real love. Will you marry me? Yes, Nadia said through tears. Yes, absolutely yes. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Nadia wore a simple white dress, and Zander cried when he saw her walk down the aisle. During their vows, Nadia spoke about how Zander had seen past her mistakes to the person she was becoming. Zander talked about how Nadia had taught him that vulnerability was strength, not weakness. "You saved me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was building walls when I should have been building a life. Thank you for showing me the difference." Their honeymoon was 2 weeks in Italy, exploring small villages and eating too much pasta. They laughed constantly, made love under foreign stars, and talked about their future. Zander wanted to shift his company's focus toward affordable housing and community development. Nadia was planning to open a nonprofit helping formerly incarcerated women find jobs and housing. "We make a good team," Zander said one evening as they watched the sunset over the Mediterranean. "The best team," Nadia agreed. 2 years after their wedding, Nadia graduated with her bachelor's degree in social work. Zander was in the front row, cheering louder than anyone else. That same year, they launched the Palmer Bryant Foundation, combining their resources to help people rebuilding their lives after incarceration. The foundation provided job training, housing assistance, and counseling services. Marcus Reed, released from prison after serving his time, was one of their first clients. Nadia struggled with the decision to help him, but ultimately decided that redemption should be available to everyone, even those who had threatened her. "You are a better person than I am," Zander said when she told him. "No," Nadia replied. "I am just someone who knows what it is like to need a second chance. I cannot withhold that from others just because it is complicated." Marcus never thanked her directly, but he completed the program and found steady work. Sometimes Nadia saw him around the city, and they would nod to each other in acknowledgement of the past and mutual understanding of moving forward. 3 years into their marriage, Nadia got pregnant. She was terrified at first, convinced she would be a terrible mother given her childhood in foster care. Zander held her through the panic attacks, reminding her of all the ways she had already proven her strength and capacity for love. "You are going to be an amazing mother," he insisted. "Our kid is going to be so lucky to have you." Their daughter, Rose, was born on a snowy December morning. She had Zander's dark hair and Nadia's green eyes. Holding her for the first time, Nadia understood what it meant to be given a completely fresh start, to love someone so fiercely that everything else fell away. "Hi, baby girl," she whispered. "I promise I am going to give you everything I never had: love, stability, a home. You are going to know every single day that you are wanted." Zander watched them with tears streaming down his face. "I love you both so much," he said hoarsely. Rose grew into a bright, curious toddler who had both her parents wrapped around her tiny finger. Nadia balanced motherhood with running the foundation, and Zander restructured his business schedule to be home for dinner every night. They built a life that felt both ordinary and miraculous, full of laughter and love, and the occasional exhausted collapse into bed. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they went back to the Rothschild Gallery for a private viewing. The current night security guard recognized them and smiled as they walked through the familiar space. "This is where it all started," Zander said, standing in front of that same abstract painting. "I was so lost back then. I thought I had everything, but I was empty." "And now," Nadia asked, leaning into his side, "now I have everything that actually matters. You, Rose, a purpose beyond just making money. You taught me that, Nadia. You showed me what it means to rebuild yourself into something better." "We rebuilt each other," Nadia corrected. "You gave me a reason to believe I deserved good things. You loved me when I could barely love myself." "I fell in love with you the second night you were cleaning here," Zander admitted. "You were singing under your breath while you worked, something old and jazzy. You looked so focused and content. I thought, that is someone who knows what it means to find peace in honest work. I wanted to know you better. I fell in love with you when you told me about your father, Nadia said. That moment when you let me see your pain instead of just your success, that was when I knew you were real. They kissed in the quiet gallery, surrounded by art and memories. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, two people who had found each other against all odds held tight to the love they had built together. Do you ever regret it? Nadia asked quietly. Taking a chance on someone like me? Never, Zander said firmly. Not even for a second. You are the best decision I ever made. Your past did not make me love you less, Nadia. It made me love you more because I understand how much strength it took to become who you are. You are my hero. Nadia felt tears slide down her cheeks, but they were happy tears. She had come so far from that scared girl who thought she did not deserve anything good. She had rebuilt herself piece by piece, and along the way, she had found a man who loved all of her, including the broken parts. I love you, she said. Thank you for seeing me when I could not see myself. Always, Zander promised. I will always see you. They stayed at the gallery for another hour, walking hand in hand through the rooms where their story had begun. Then they went home to their daughter, to their life, to the beautiful second chance they had built together. Years later, when Rose was old enough to understand, they would tell her the whole story. How her mother had made mistakes and learned from them. How her father had helped her mother find her strength. How love sometimes found you in the most unexpected places, between a reformed bad girl and a billionaire who learned that wealth meant nothing without someone to share it with. But for now, they simply lived in the moment, grateful for every day they had together. Nadia Palmer Bryant, formerly incarcerated and afraid, now a wife, mother, and founder of a successful nonprofit. Zander Bryant, who had once measured success in dollars and properties, now measured it in stolen kisses and bedtime stories with his daughter. They had both been searching for something in that gallery on a quiet night. Neither had known that what they needed was each other. But love had a way of finding people when they were ready, even when they did not realize they were searching. Especially when they were brave enough to risk everything for a chance at something real. Their love story was not perfect. There were still hard days, still moments when Nadia felt the weight of her past, or Zander struggled with the pressure of his responsibilities. But they faced everything together, as partners, as equals, as two people who had chosen each other over and over again. And in the end, that was what mattered most. Not the money or the success or the redemption arc. Just two people who loved each other deeply, wholly, and permanently. Two people who proved that everyone deserved a second chance at happiness, and that sometimes the most unlikely love stories turned out to be the most beautiful ones of all. Nadia often thought about the security guard who had barely glanced at her that first night. He probably never realized he had witnessed the beginning of something extraordinary, but she knew. She remembered every detail of that night, every word exchanged, every moment that led to this beautiful life. And when she tucked Rose into bed each evening, she would whisper a silent thank you to the universe for insomnia and abstract paintings and chance encounters that changed everything. She was grateful for second chances, for honest work, for a man who loved her past and all. Most of all, she was grateful for the courage it took to let herself be loved, to believe she deserved happiness, to reach out and grab the life she had always dreamed of having, the reformed bad girl and the billionaire. It sounded like a fairy tale, but it was real. Messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. They built there happily ever after one day at a time with love, trust, and the unshakable belief that they were better together than they ever could have been apart.